so the candidates ask us questions. At the end, we give them 10 minutes out of the hour.
Yeah.
And they were saying, so what about your community? What are you up to? And I said, well, I happen to sit on the affordable housing
Yeah.
committee, and I can tell you, Scarborough has been doing a very good
Oh,
job.
wow. That's great.
Okay,
All right, we're live. All right, great,
so audio, video is working for both of you? Good, okay,
great. Here we are. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for your flexibility with scheduling and rescheduling and descheduling. And here we are. And Karen, thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome. So our first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Don't have any, so we will skip that and move on to our first discussion of updates on various housing projects and all affordable housing projects that are under construction.
Sure.
And in the development pipeline. And so Tom, if you
so I'll
would,
take them in
those-
order. I did reach out to both of the projects that are actively under construction. Eric might be able to provide even some more information on the Investa project, but for Jocelyn Place, this, just for your recollection, this is a project done by South Portland Housing Authority. I should be able to tell you the number of units, but I can't off the top of my head. I think it's 31. No, 31 is Investa. I think it's closer to 50, but it is senior focused. They are officially 60% complete, though they do report some delays in electrical equipment. So I would expect they'll be open and taking occupancy sometime late this fall. They have opened up their waiting list. I presume was filled fairly quickly. I was able to get a little few words and a link to that on our e-newsletter, so we broadcasted out to our community. You might recall in that discussion, members of council were very interested in giving preference to Scarborough residents. We couldn't do that specifically, but we thought certainly sharing the fact that the waiting list was open and available for application served a similar purpose.
Good.
With respect to Village Commons, this is a Vestas project. It's all weathered in, roof is on, windows are in. I believe drywall is starting at the top floor and going to work downward. They report themselves to be 45% complete or so. And they have a November occupancy target. I've not heard about waiting list and how they're going to manage that. Eric, I don't know if you know anything more about the project status or about the waiting list?
No, that's about what I know. Our normal protocol for waiting list is to open it 90 days before we anticipate CO. So if it's November, it'll be later this summer.
Yep. So
Where's Village Commons?
it's on the back side of the old public safety building.
Oh, that's nice
Yeah.
one, yeah. Yeah.
It fits quite nicely on that lot.
Yeah, it really
I
is.
wondered how it was going to look. It doesn't seem to dominate. I think the fact that it's kind of set back on the lot helps in that regard. And then with respect to 3I, Karen has been working very closely with them regarding their application for a credit enhancement agreement. That is soon, in fact, I think it is in front of me now, or will be shortly. And the way we are putting this project through our CEA policy, and it's not a perfect fit. The policy was really designed for economic development TIFs and CEAs. But we've done this in the past, kind of a forced fit, and we're doing as best we can, I suppose. It would be helpful for this body in advance of the council considering the CEA to have an opinion about that matter and provide a recommendation for council's consideration. I expect that will be in front of council probably in the August timeframe at their August 19th meeting. Beyond that, I believe 3I has secured all of their planning board approvals.
They have.
As a related matter, there were 4 different buildings approved for the town center in the Downs, 3 of which are right in the same vicinity as 3I. So they all kind of work together, if you will, to really kind of begin the town center portion of that project.
If you haven't seen the detailed plans. It is a remarkable building, very thoughtfully designed in terms of access from not just the building, but they've got the flat parking lot entering into the sidewalk. So people who are living here with the mobility and impairments, they can really get everywhere they need to go right in the downtown area. It is really remarkable in terms of its.
Given the status, the stage of completion of these three projects, it would seem as if the Housing Alliance Committee could have a tour of the three of them,
Yeah,
do a bing, 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 just to allow us to more eloquently express the good things that are happening in this area that we all believe in.
similar to what we did at Southgate when it came online, right down by,
Yeah,
it's not Dunstan. Is it Dunstan? Yeah,
it is
down by
Dunstan,
Dunstan,
yeah.
yeah.
but
That'd
that
be
to me
great,
would,
yeah.
it would, there it is. It's,
Mhm. Here's what we do.
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe this fall or
Yeah. that's a great
late
idea.
fall, when the three of them are done.
And we've got Vita from POA here. Vita, any more color you could give us on the project overall?
Sure. I joined a little bit 2 minutes late into the conversation. I'm sorry. In terms of permitting, that's right. We did receive our conditional approval just for our project on the 5th of June from the planning board. And then just earlier this week on Monday, the planning board did provide their approval for the subdivision for Crossroads. The conditional approval for us had really one condition to be, to have the overarching subdivision approval. And so now that that's in the clear, we're completely good to go to push forward. Otherwise, we are submitting a pre-application for 9% funding next week to Maine Housing. And I believe that you guys were singing high praises for the design. It's going to be exquisite. We're gonna have, just like Karen was saying, beautiful landscaping outside. The parking lot is going to be designed in a way where it can be restriped for more parking if needed. But right now we have a 1-to-1 parking ratio, which is a result of redesigning based on our conversation with the planning board and also based on precedent where other properties serving basically the same disabled population has a successful 1-to-1 ratio of 90 units. But otherwise, we do have landscaping, we have outdoor pedestrian patios, we're gonna have kind of a reflective garden for the purpose of, quiet enjoyment. We also have, our location next to the town center, right across from it, is going to have a great experience for residents so that they don't have to travel too far or even get in a car to enjoy the conveniences of, town life. And obviously indoors, we're going to be at the accessibility standard of kind of at the gold standard of the US accessibility standards. Wide hallways that are comfortable but not institutional feeling, overhead lifts inside the units, all the kind of things that you would expect for getting around inside the bedrooms, the doors, the access ways, the appliances would be at, at a level that is comfortable for these residents. So the design's going to be great. Yeah.
Vita, I wonder, could you advise, you said you're preparing to make application, is it for the 9% program?
Yeah, the 9% program has a pre-application deadline next week. So we're putting that together.
In terms of timing regarding the credit enhancement agreement, can you advise us when you need that answer to assist you in your application process?
Sure. So technically that deadline is next Thursday. So I have a lot of it ready to go, but of course it would be great to have something in writing regarding that approval by next week. I know it's a holiday week, so it's kind of strange, but anything that we can have from you by say Wednesday would be.
So just in I had a conversation with Corey, because I knew we weren't going to be able to have the full council approval by then, but we were going to write a general letter of support and say where you are with the town. So we'll have that we'll have that ready.
Okay,
That's perfect. Yeah, it doesn't
have
have to be
that.
anything formal, but something just to that effect.
Sure.
well, I don't want to presume anything, but more than likely, this body tonight will weigh in on the matter. We can certainly add that for additional weight in that letter.
I
Yeah.
didn't mention already, I do want to mention that, the approval for the CEA will eventually, when we do the full application for funding in September, will get us a scoring point, for scoring generally the project. So
And what is the deadline for the full application?
the full application is September 21st. But that involves the pre-application due this.
Sure.
And then Vito, once you do the full application, when would you hear about your funding, and then when would you start construction?
Well, our preliminary schedule, is that, once we put the application in September, we'll probably hope to hear from them, from Maine Housing within the ward by, say, January or so, and then be able to close by the summertime. That might shift a little bit based on our experience with Maine Housing with another project. But I think late summer construction closing start of 24 might be a realistic. It might push to the fall. We'll see.
And then this is the 9% funding would be the last piece of funding that you need to do the project. There's no other competitive funding that you're looking for? Or are there others?
No, I mean, we're always taking further funding sources, still looking for
Yeah,
any funds that we can find, but competitive wise from the Maine Housing anyway, that would be kind of the last big piece of the puzzle.
okay, so if you get this, then the project will happen. Yeah,
Sure, yes.
yeah, okay, yeah, no, that's good.
The Maine Housing piece is the
Yeah.
piece to kind of, do
Okay.
it, yeah.
Great,
Right, just to recap, they are asking for 60% on the CEA. And remember, the Downs has the 40%. So 100% of the taxes will be committed toward a credit enhancement agreement. And I think it was already been said, but it is 100% affordable housing for all the
and Vita, what's the
Total
term, what's the
units?
term of the CEA
two
that you're
units,
requesting?
51 units.
How many years?
It kind of depends, yeah, Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, 25, and they get just to the end of the, if it starts now, it gets just to the end of the TIF fund.
We're not setting up a different
Right,
district. This already exists in the
That's
downtown
right.
district.
Yeah.
So our thought is to simply use that platform.
Okay, great.
And we're basically the remainder of the term is about 25 years.
Right. and that is the good news is that the only thing that needs a vote is the CEA, which we don't need any other state approval or anything like that.
Because it's already authorized.
Yes.
Great. So, and maybe just to say it differently, the end point is already defined.
Correct.
Right, so it's not starting point plus 25 years, it's as many years as you can squeeze in before the end point.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So, terrific. Well, thank you for that update, Vita and Karen,
Welcome.
Good.
really great. Any other questions about the projects or any of these projects from anybody on the Alliance?
I guess just for the Alliance, I fear. These projects take a long time from conception to completion and occupancy. And I just, I have a sense that residents lose, forget the magnitude of the effort and the work that's actually being done. So I just encourage this body, maybe because we've got two projects that are coming online fairly close to one another. We can work with our communications team and perhaps really, people aren't going to write these headlines for us. So sometimes you need to step up and take the credit.
Yeah, so maybe there's a sort of a press release function that we can be helping to work on.
We can invite ourselves to ribbon cuttings and such.
Exactly.
But really celebrate these
Yeah.
successes.
That's great.
I will say, I got a nice note from Tom Below, who sits on the Portland Housing Authority. And he just said, because I knew Tom from previous work at GBCog, and he just wrote a nice note saying, I'm really proud of the work that Scarborough is doing. So I wanted to share that with you.
That's nice.
Thank you, that's great. Well, terrific. So thank you for those updates, Tom and Vita and Karen.
Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda is an action item, which is a request for a request for a CEA. And there is a suggested motion on our agenda. If somebody would be so kind as to make that motion, that would be lovely.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Please. Eric? Great. It's seconded by Eric. Any discussion regarding the motion?
All for it.
Yeah. This is a terrific project. I think this is a great way to support it, get the scoring it needs, to get the resources it needs, within the confines of this resource that's already been created and approved by the state. So, Eric, any comments or questions you want to add? Jean Marie?
No,
Great.
The one observation I'd make, and we can, Julie and I can probably represent this, or perhaps the Alliance can in its recommendation. The good news is this council has gone through this, many of them, so they have a pretty good understanding of how this works. And in the world of affordable housing, it's not so much about the bottom line, the pro forma, the reimbursement taxes. It's really all about the points. And I don't know if that's compelling, but I find it to be something that maybe not fully understood.
and I think it would behoove us to really explain it again, and it's not as much for the council, but for the public. Because
Yeah.
CEA, oh my God, CEA and TIFs, they're such bad things, you know?
Yeah, this is really about.
They've gotten a bad rap with the downs, so we need to re-educate people on the value, so.
And then, this project in particular, not taking anything away from all the other projects that are online and soon to be online, is just so unique in terms of the population it serves.
Yeah.
And really something I know we'll be proud of.
Absolutely. Great, and without objection, I'll move the question. All in favor of the motion as read? Great, anybody opposed? Nobody left, 3 opposed, nobody's opposed, it's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. This is really important for this project and for this town's.
Absolutely.
So Karen, will you assist in crafting a letter? Brian, I don't know that we need anything in writing from the committee until it's ready to go to council. But Karen and I will work on a letter to provide the support she needs for the pre-application. It's theoretically possible that we can get this on the July meeting, but I think more than likely, if her schedule will tolerate it, we'll do it in the August meeting.
Great. Yeah, and if you need anything for her application from us, let me know.
I think in the end, it's been very helpful. You authored a letter on behalf of the Alliance, with your recommendation. And it's an opportunity to provide a little more context and background if you wish. So that would be great.
Yeah, great. Great, next item on the agenda has to do with the it's titled resale process for 33 Grist Mill. If folks recall, within the Downs, 10% of the units are required to be affordable. It's called inclusionary zoning. We have a program that governs the purchase and sale of those homes that are affordable. 33 Grist Mill is one of them. And at some point in time recently, we got notification that the owner wanted to sell and started taking the time to work to improve the process for the sale of these regulated homes. Tom, I don't know if you've got an update as to whether the
No,
owner still
nothing.
wants to sell, but
I, Brian and I met with the Realtor and actually Michaela from this alliance, who is also, I think, a business partner, or works in the same firm as the Realtor. Really to try to understand the financials of this particular situation and also to improve our process. You might recall, we've had one experience that was a bit rocky. It was our first time through. And really what we've come to appreciate is kind of the confusion and uncertainty around the maximum purchase price.
Yeah.
And whether that in fact is the list price the seller and the broker can go with. So long story short, we spent probably an hour going through the particulars of this property. And what we really found is, and why I don't think I've heard any follow-up, is that because of the rise in interest rates from when this homeowner bought the home to what they are now, it really didn't make financial sense. There certainly was no windfall profit coming her way. In fact, I don't know that she would have been able to sell it for what she bought it for.
that's all right. Yeah, it's pretty close. That's right. One tangible bit of work products, we've got our affordable housing determination workbook that brokers and developers use to manage the rents and purchase and sale of these homes. We've added a page to that workbook to be a tool to calculate the what's now called the maximum maximum allowable sales price, or maximum allowable price. Eric, you've come up with some good synonyms for that make a lot more sense in language. For now, the workbook uses the phrase that's in the recorded documents, but I think at some point soon, certainly for whatever homes get built next, subject to this program, we ought to strongly consider changing the word to make more sense.
One of the items perhaps we should put on the agenda, so there's 13 homes that are currently subject to these requirements. There's an affordable housing agreement that Brian's referring to that is recorded against the deed, and that's the trigger that brings a party to us to go through the process. We really can't do anything without great hardship to modify the existing agreements. But I think it does make sense for us to take a look at that maybe at your next meeting and to make some changes so the next ones that we do take into account our experience and kind of reflect maybe new terminology and new way of doing things.
Yeah.
So we're in a position to move forward with a revised agreement that makes more sense.
Yeah, I think that'd be terrific.
So the upshot with this, that it was really an inquiry, and since we've not heard any follow-up, I think the financials were such that, and this person apparently didn't have any need to move or burning desire. So I think the fact we haven't heard any follow-up, they're going to stay where they are at this point. But it was eye-opening, particularly given the fact that the first sale there was what I'll characterize as a windfall. I don't know what it was, but it was significant, eye-opening to us. And then because of the change in interest rates alone, no other factors changed. Whatever appreciation there might be totally evaporated.
So that's that'll be an interesting factor for us to keep an eye on. So, I think whatever homes get added to the inventory now, this next batch of homes that get added will be well positioned for future affordability. But I think this first batch will likely have that same feature set. Where they were probably purchased with low interest rates.
That's because they were purchased with low interest rates.
Yeah. All right. The next item is really this item full of excitement from Karen Summit. But goals and initiatives for 2023 and importantly, leads for each one. And I think we've got a unique opportunity because half the alliance isn't here, so we can assign leads for each one based on who's not here. But and yeah, it's probably proper to deal with this when more people are here. But yeah, I think you guys saw in the email that I sent this summit that Karen put on was terrific, and it was really nice to have everybody in the same room. Talking about the work they do and different ways to collaborate. And also to hear the approach that different groups take to the work that they do. And what that means to me, I've sort of taken over the years our approach to be sort of more weight and reactive to direction from the council, and I didn't hear that as being universal from other groups, and I thought that was peculiar. I think other groups take the goals of the council and then work within them to advance their own thoughts and spirit, and I think that seems to get quite a bit of engagement from the groups and engagement outside of the meetings, which I thought was really terrific. So that could be an interesting way for us to begin working on these important issues.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm not sure if it's back to you, but one of my hopes of that session was comfort and collaboration. I guess I'll say that groups saw opportunities to kind of pair up and to go off on their own and kind of work on areas of common interest. And I think in large part that happened. There was one individual who attended that listened to your comments in particular and chose to appear at the next following Conservation Commission meeting. And what he heard that evening was, and the message to the Conservation Commission is that, you should be looking over your shoulder because there might be other committees working at cross purposes with you.
Yeah.
So that was surprising to me and a bit unfortunate, I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know how that was received at the Conservation Commission. I think my hope and hunch is that what he thought he heard was something different than what you intended.
Yeah, it was. Since then, I've reached out to the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission has a goal of conserving. I don't know what the number is, but
30% of the town's land, but by 2030, which is, I was like, I
it's an
had,
ambitious goal.
when I first heard it, and I pulled them back from the edge a bit because I thought they came out a bit strong on that, and it's like, whoa, where are you getting all the money to reimburse people and compensate them for their land ownership? And they hadn't thought of that, and I'm like, okay. So it's a matter of making folks aware. It's a great goal. I mean, the more we can conserve, particularly as we're growing as a town, because once you lose land, you never get it back, because they don't grow more land. We don't live in a volcanic area, more land. So, I got them to back off a bit, but still stay with that goal. I'm hopeful that they're going to listen and be a little more involved, with planning and things that are coming down the line, because there are ways to conserve land. And
One of the things I shared when I reached out was, and Eric, I think you're familiar with the Enterprise Green Communities criteria, which is, I don't know, the shorthand way that I would describe it is an environmentally aware way of developing affordable housing. And within, and it's a very thoughtful checklist of things to do when you're developing affordable housing to be sensitive to health and the environment. Within it, there are criteria that have to do with actually dedicating parts of your development to preserved open space. And so as I heard their goals, one of the things I thought about that maybe we could talk about and collaborate with them on is with all the folks that come to our group looking, whether it's for the CEA or TIF or housing trust funds, imagine if we could work to preserve part of the open space within their developments. As they're asking us for these resources.
Yeah.
Putting that land towards
Yeah.
their goals. I think it's an interesting way, I think, to
Yeah,
work together and start tallying up some preservation. In a way, other than just strictly forests.
Right, and you want it to be mutually beneficial.
Yeah,
To everybody, to all parties, with that. As you guys, you and Eric in particular are out there trying to develop these projects and right now the market is such that land is at a premium. Building costs are still at a premium. I don't know. But we have to do something. I mean, you can't just pave it all over for a parking lot, as that famous song back in the 60s said, So I'm glad you talked to them. I appreciate that, Brian.
well, it was an email, but yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Well,
it was an
reach
email.
That's talking.
At least-
Yeah, yeah.
Let's make the,
Be like-
let's make
be
the
like trying to talk.
contact,
Yeah,
because I think sometimes committees tend to work in a bubble.
yeah.
And they've got their own agendas, and the people you get on committees are on the committees because that's their interest. And we want to harness that, but we also have to direct it so that it's working for the town, for everyone in town, all the citizens of town. So that was what was good about that summit. I heard that from a number of people who came to the summit too.
Hmm.
That was a good message to come out of that. So thank you, Karen.
Bill?
have you guys, I've been getting, inundated with this, Portland Museum of Art building project. And the idea of it being a wood structure. And that it's a special kind of laminate wood that captures carbon and is very
Expensive.
positive to the environment.
It's very expensive too. I have not heard that.
No,
I haven't heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I went to a PMA event a couple nights ago, and they're touting it as, from an environmental point of view, as a big deal.
oh, wow.
Because you can build no concrete, no steel to speak of.
Yeah,
And it captures the carbon. And it's a real main
How does it capture the
forest
carbon?
industry.
Yeah.
How does it capture the carbon, do you know?
And maybe I should see if I can get
got
something
an
out
article or
of
something, yeah.
Uh,
Right. Is that gonna be here in Scarborough?
the PMA thing is right where the building is now.
Oh, in Portland.
They're
Yeah.
looking
Oh,
to
all right.
expand.
Yeah.
But
But I mean, it's a huge project,
Wow,
100 million,
geez,
yeah, of which they've raised tons and tons. of
yeah, wow.
And the people at the event that I was at were big money people.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of money in that group. A lot of money.
Yeah, in PMA, yeah, there were a bunch of Proudies. Present, so.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try and, because it just is another angle, another way to get the conservation concepts in town.
Yeah,
Uh,
and sustainability.
Yeah.
And, all those things that we, yeah.
Well, my question on that, I don't think you heard me, was the wood itself captures carbon even as it sits as a building? Do you know?
yeah, and then I'll get an explanation.
Because I
Certainly,
know wood, when it's a tree in my yard, is capturing carbon. But once it's cut
Yeah.
down, how the hell does it capture carbon? So I'd like to know
and
more.
I think the idea is there's no. If you're using wood, you're gonna have very little carbon because it's already captured carbon from within, and then you're clearing main forests and outgrows the new plan, whereas concrete.
Yeah, I have a concern about that concept, but that's me. All right. Just
And
wonder,
Concrete is a huge problem for, as well as steel.
Yeah,
well, it's interesting because, and not to get off the subject, but I have a client who has a house under contract in Naples. I'm in Naples, Maine, and it's a new construction and it's concrete. And I forget what I should know. I've got it under contract, but it's been a while since I've looked at it because it takes forever to get these built. But it's, supposedly totally energy efficient. It doesn't have, it's not wood. It's like an igloo. That's all I can think of, but I'd have to look again at what the materials are, but they were all, supposedly ecologically, whatever. So
Huh.
I'll get more.
That's a general area the sustainability committee is interested in looking
Yeah.
at, really from an ordinance point of view in terms of.
Yeah, and I'll have to get that. I'll get more details on it, but my client found it and I was like, what? They do what?
so as we move forward, I think there are a lot of a lot of opportunities for collaboration and Tom, one thing that maybe would be helpful to help us identify those opportunities, that if there's a list of all the different committees in town to circulate, I don't think we need a description of them. I think we could probably figure out what they do by their names. That would be great.
Yeah, we've got a list with
Oh, you do?
the chairs.
Oh, great.
And if we can just double check if we can get if we can provide the email addresses, because it's everybody's personal. Like,
Yeah.
are you okay with if we send yours?
Sure,
All right.
sure.
I think
So
it's
I'll
so
get
long as
back to
it's
you.
internal
Yeah.
kind of committee use,
Okay.
committee, I think that should be fine.
As long as it's for the
I was
greater
gonna
good.
ask, does each committee have its own email that's just a general committee email? Or is
No.
it,
No,
we should look at doing that because it would
We
make it
have, but
easier
it's
for.
expensive and complicated.
Oh. Well, I don't know why it'd be expensive and complicated just to set up an email box that's regularly checked by somebody, but that's my opinion. We welcome yours. What do I know?
We actually have to pay for those licenses.
Yeah.
There is a cost associated with G-Marine.
You mean, so if you set up a name, like you've got me as J Katarina, whatever the heck it is, that you can't just set up something that says Conservation Committee at Scarborough Town dot whatever we
There
are.
could be a general one, yes. And
Yeah,
we
that's
have-
that's what I'm
board.
talking about, a general inbox. So that the community could use instead of them, because people are really, I think they'd be more apt to send in something if there was something more general rather than trying to look up, oh geez, what's Jean Marie's address or what's, Eric's address on the committee. It's in
believe-
addition to us having our own emails, but that's just me. That's just a thought I've had before.
I'll look into it again. We have it for the larger committees. I think there is a general one for planning board and zoning
Yeah,
board.
Yeah, I
We
think
don't
there
have them
is.
for all the committees.
there's, I think. We've talked to the IT department about doing it before, and there are some other issues that were not necessarily priced, but so.
Okay.
Jen, tell us.
Well,
They know more than I do, so.
All right. Yeah, so I think it's probably best to assign these things and focus on these goals when more people are here, but this collaboration thing is a big deal, and the metrics issue is one that I know town council is interested in. The notion about housing cost reduction is one that kind of touched on the sustainability group. I think, with opportunities to reduce utility costs for existing homeowners.
Jesus.
With that, a lot of times as we're talking as an alliance where we're talking about building new housing for typically new people coming into town or new Scarboroughans, whatever we call ourselves. And I think if we can find a way to have efforts that will reduce the housing costs for in-place residents, I think that could be hugely impactful. And also help gain supporters for our work. Whether that's helping with the cost of improvements, you're helping to reduce the cost of utilities. Helping with financing for certain things. This is probably, well, it's not infinite, but there's, a handful of typical things that people in the world do to reduce housing costs, and maybe we can explore those. And then, the last thing on the list is, recruitment for the Alliance, and maintaining a good, a good group of people with different backgrounds and interest in what we do. And I think we've got a great group now, and maintaining a great group and maintaining a great group of backgrounds, I think is really it's been so helpful to have the different perspectives that we have on the Alliance.
Can I ask, this is a really dumb question because I should know the answer to this, but Tom, whatever happened to that ordinance on workforce housing? The hotel conversion, is it sitting on Autumn's desk or where is it?
It is stuck at ordinance. They kind of bumped it
I'm
back.
on ordinance. I haven't seen it. Who do I yell at?
Well, I think some other priorities took precedent. But the Alliance has done its work. I think it's one step away from council.
So I need to talk to Nick.
Let me check with Autumn in the morning and make sure.
Yeah,
that-
if you would, because just talking about future things, here's something that could have a great impact, at some point, and we want it in place, and then it's like, it's in limbo somewhere.
Actually, I believe it's council leadership has decided to hold it back.
Well,
because
Jerry will
full
fix
agendas.
that.
Allow me to
Alright,
confirm
I
all
know.
that before you go on the warpath,
Yeah.
please.
No, I'm not going on the warpath, but I'll just be like, guys, what are we doing here?
Brian, one thing that I don't know if it ends up on this list, but I think I'm curious about the new state legislation. This is the so-called LD 2003.
Yeah.
And increased density and accessory dwelling units. I think there's a real opportunity for affordable housing, whether it's technically or practically, that will come out of that. And I guess I think it might be worth some time to talk about that further, and if that's the case, find ways to help educate and incentivize ADUs.
Well, and just so you'll know, along with that, Nick and I have talked on ordinance, we're gonna do that Airbnb, regulating these short-term rentals, because there's 352 of them in Scarborough right now. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, okay, that's fine, but there comes a point where it's like, how many do you need, and how many of those are taking away from housing that's more affordable for people? So we are going to be looking at that, I believe, to suite, like quickly, to go along with this LD 2003. Because I know they pushed it back to January for municipalities with planning boards and whatever. I mean, not planning boards,
Oh,
but
so it was gonna be July.
councils.
It's
No,
July
it's been pushed back to January. I thought I read yesterday.
It
But
is
maybe I missed
January.
So one of the things I think that's unique about Scarborough is I think we were ahead of the curve with ADUs.
Yeah, we are.
And so I think that would be, an interesting conversation about what as a town or as an alliance we want to be doing. Is this is the work a work of advocating people to utilize the tool? Or is the work of education to get people to embrace these in their neighborhood? Or is it a little bit of both? But I think that's a really timely topic, or is it even broader to do both of those things with, all of these new tools that are available, and figure out, how, given this new reality, what's the best way to embrace these tools within our town to achieve our goals? And
If you think about it, I mean, this is all fueled with private investment.
Mhm.
I don't know that there's a way for us to make, require affordability. But practically speaking, you're talking about smaller units and therefore lower construction costs.
Mhm.
lower cost to maintain and, all those sorts
Yeah.
of things. So I think practically speaking, I think they will fit that mold pretty well.
Yeah.
So long as they're not commercialized.
What was the general sense of the occupancy? Was it a mother-in-law apartment kind of thing? That you'd build an ADU next to an existing single-family dwelling? And you'd have it available for a relative? Was that the idea?
I think probably originally.
Yeah, I mean, the old nanny pad, right?
Yeah.
The mother, in-law,
Granny flat.
granny flat, but. Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong, the sponsor of this legislation, it was all about creating more housing units.
Creating more
Yeah.
housing units, correct. In an ideal world, people could create these ADUs and then rent them out. To people working in town. Or you could move your mom into it and then she could sell her house, which would give more inventory in the real estate world. All of those factors, but it wasn't just for in-laws. They'd taken away that whole thing. It's accessory dwelling unit for a reason, not in-law apartments.
Yeah, and the importance of it being a statewide initiative and requirement is that many communities didn't allow ADUs, so.
Oh, yeah.
You've opened an opportunity that didn't exist, and even in our instance, though we're ahead of the curve.
Right.
We had unnecessary rigors associated with it. When I built mine, I had to go to the zoning board.
Right.
It was a lot more complicated than it needed to be.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't you part of yours, your septic too?
Well, and those standards will still apply. I had to double the size of my septic because of the ADU.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, when I applied back in 2009, it was only the zoning board that could grant that. And so there's a cost and a
Yeah.
complication associated with
Was
it.
it a special exception? Wasn't a variance.
I think so. I think that's
I
right.
think it is special exception, yeah.
Yeah,
And the one thing that is happening are today, I guess, the grants to support communities who are trying to adapt to the new regulations. I believe those dropped today, and the question would be whether or not there's opportunity to broaden that and say, it's not about developing the ordinances, because we've already done that.
Yeah.
But it's about looking at the impacts or other things that are extensions of that. So I think we'll be trying to see whether or not those grants are going to be a little more flexible. And I think there's going to be a lot of topics that we could explore with some grant funds that really are related to the changes in the state housing
Yeah.
regulations.
Yeah, for our purposes, Autumn Spear, the planning director, has done a fabulous job. We're midpoint of adoption, so actually this week, planning board held a public hearing. And they'll come back to council in July for final reading. We're halfway through, so we're gonna keep pushing through the implementation rather than waiting.
We're gonna be way ahead. We're gonna be way ahead of just about everybody else in the state, to be honest with you.
That's great.
But there's just in our case, I think there's 14 different parts of the zoning ordinance that are touched by this.
And I'll be honest with you, I have heard from a few people that they're like, why do we have to do this? I don't want this in my neighborhood, blah, 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 blah. So just be aware. And of
Well,
course-
so
and part of it, it's not just, some of it is they're concerned about Airbnb, VRBO, the short-term rental use, which can be addressed through ordinance. I mean, that's an easy thing to address. Or I shouldn't say easy, it's never easy, but it's that fine line between private property rights and allowing owner occupied in particular to be able to offset taxes, for example, or whatnot by doing, rental, but how many are too many? And, how do we control it so that it's not just, oh yeah, two nights, every 2 nights is turnover. And as I said, I was really surprised. Paul Johnson's been involved in the project with GP Cog, and he showed me the what's going on in Scarborough. And I was thinking most of them are concentrated down along the water, the beaches, and they aren't. There's way more than I expected. all over Scarborough that are being used currently as short-term rentals. So,
But
I-
interestingly, Jean Marie, and this is probably, will be, more pertinent for the ordinance committee. I looked through my files, I have half a dozen complaints over the 16 years I've been here. So in spite of that, it's not as if I can't say that there's a widespread issue with complaining.
well, no, and I'm not talking about just complaints, I'm talking about purely economic point of view. Do we want every ADU in town to be short-term rental? Because then you're not allowing for housing for others who could use it for housing, but that's my shtick.
So Bill and Eric, as we look at kind of this list of, potential goals and initiatives, and I hear about the timeliness of, these changes that aren't coming down the pike, but they're like here on the pike. I wonder what, in the spirit of putting you both on the spot right now, how it would be to prioritize that as an issue that we tackle, first or with collaboration, but to really jump right on this LD 2003 as a primary objective for us.
It's a means to creating affordable housing, because by its nature, it's small.
Right, as long as it doesn't become a VRBO or a Airbnb.
Yeah, and I guess you're gonna get, property rights are property rights. You can get some people who VRBO it, B&B it. But
Well, if you've
some
got
people are gonna-
ordinances like some other towns have that, okay, you can do short-term rentals, but you can only do them for 3 weeks of the year. The rest of the time you can rent it out for longer term. There's all sorts of.
And the question isn't that specific. The question
Right.
is, how do you guys feel about, tackling, the implementation of this whole thing as one
I
of our
think it's a
primary
big
goals?
deal.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do
And
too.
it's a means to our end
yeah,
of creating affordable housing.
Yeah,
And the legislature has created this opportunity, and it's brand new. Jean Marie points out there's all sorts of, and Tom rigmarole,
yeah,
that you have to come to grips with. But that's what we need to be able to do.
yeah.
We need to be able to actually explain it to the town council.
and I would love to see us, or you guys, remind people of how valuable they are to be used for workforce housing, or to make housing more affordable for some people who otherwise wouldn't have a place to live. So,
Eric, how about your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with what everyone said. I think it's worth looking into and figuring out how we can make it work for our priorities and goals.
Great.
There's a myriad of different ways it would be used.
Yeah,
And some, people put some money in their pockets, they rent it on a short-term basis.
Yeah.
Others have college graduate children who haven't got 2 dimes to rub together.
yeah,
And they have a place to put them and they don't have to have them in their house.
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
This could be pretty cool, and for us, if we're gonna be the Housing Alliance, which we are, that's what we're called. We ought to understand this new tool that exists that relates
Exactly.
to housing, right?
Right.
We're an alliance.
yeah, I imagine there must be some communities that are embracing this
Yeah,
and
be nice to be that.
nice to combine with them.
Yeah. Great.
I like it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Tom.
Yeah.
Great. Tom, other than the members of the public who are part of the alliance and you, Karen, are there any other members of the public that have joined us tonight?
Not that I see, no attendees.
All right.
Our 3 panelists. And no attendees.
We have to add that as a goal, get our promotions out better, posters or something. All right, well, who wants the?
How many members did not?
When's your
attend?
next meeting? When's the
our
next meeting?
meeting? I can, that's a good question, Jean Marie.
We need
for
to be
asking.
really clear on these things for people like me.
Next meeting is scheduled on my calendar for Wednesday, July 26th.
Oh, good. I'm in town then. All right.
Perfect. You're invited.
Gee, thanks.
I believe you have 4 members not here tonight,
4.
5. Dick LaRue, Michaela Sargent, Bob Netto, Leroy Crockett. I guess 4.
Yeah, saw Leroy at the chamber meeting.
Right.
And, yeah,
Um,
but we need some education on the
And
ADU.
2 of those I knew weren't going to be here.
Yeah,
all right, who wants to take the last item on the agenda? Eric?
May I ask a question then, given that I can't recall, what is our
Did you count?
quorum to take votes?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or-
Cause
Yeah, this-
I'm not a voting member.
This does not constitute a quorum. I think for purposes of the letter, I think the fact that it came up and those present unanimously voted in support would be sufficient.
Yeah, maybe,
I'll-
maybe we'll do an email.
yeah, do.
Well, I'll do an email polling of the group. To
Or if
seek
we,
support.
if we're not bringing this to council till August, you could put it back on your agenda on the 19th and have a vote with a quorum
A
present.
formal meeting.
Yeah, maybe for council, it would really be nice to have something for that,
Agreed.
application though, that counts.
Yeah, so if you want to do something by email, then.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Fine in the interim.
Great. Tree falls, nobody,
Yeah.
or not enough people hear it. Did it really
Motion
fall?
to adjourn.
We are
Yeah.
adjourned at 7 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you all. See you.
See you.
Bye.
Good to see you, Eric.